everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be doing a full review on the PanPastels as well as a demonstration. Now I do have the full set of 80, so I've got all the colors. I also have a couple mediums and some tools. I've got a good variety of things from them and their different palette trays. So and I've had them for quite some time. If you saw my original haul, then you would have seen in that video kind of the unboxing a little bit and some of my initial thoughts, but I had been working with them for quite some time and I do feel like I really am ready to give a review. So a quick rundown before we get started on what you can expect to see in this video. So first we're going to talk about what they are, what PanPastels are. We're going to go over the claims the company makes, some comparisons. We're going to talk about price and availability, the tools, who I think these might be good for, as well as some suggestions on how to buy and collect these. And of course I'm going to be offering a demonstration. Now the demonstration portion of this video, I created this piece on the pastel matte paper. Which I do feel is the best paper for PanPastel, but I also recently uploaded a demonstration of the PanPastels on the Arches 100% cotton drawing paper, and that was the apricot branch that I did, so that you can kind of get an idea of how they work on different papers. So I'll link that in the iCard if you would like to see them in action on that paper, which is a non-sanded surface, in case you don't like to work on sanded surfaces. Not that pastel matte is a sanded surface, it's a little bit unique. It's a fibrous type paper, but I've used it on sanded surfaces as well, so I can give you the benefit of my opinion on those. So before we get started, if you'd like to and you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if you find this video helpful. It really helps out my channel. So the first thing I would like to do is kind of read the claims that the company makes, because I think they're important. I take claims seriously. So PanPastels. They're a relatively new medium to the art world, in my opinion. So what the company is saying is that PanPastel colors are a professional artist quality soft pastel in a pan. Ultra soft, highly light fast, low dust, highly pigmented, paint straight from the pan. PanPastel colors are made using a unique manufacturing process requiring minimal binder and fillers, resulting in rich, ultra soft, and super blendable colors. PanPastels are a professional artist quality soft pastel color packed in a unique pan format. A lot of this information is redundant, I must say. Cake-like. The special qualities of PanPastel colors mean that artists can blend and apply dry color like a fluid paint for the first time. I have some remarks on that claim and we'll get back to it. Each color is loaded with the finest quality artist pigments for the most concentrated colors possible. The colors have excellent light fastness and are fully erasable. Uniquely for PanPastel color, they can be mixed together for a complete color palette. So this is all coming right off their website, and this is what they say. I have to say, a little of it is kind of redundant, like I said, some repetitive information, but yeah, okay. PanPastels contain 0.0 fluid ounces or 9 milliliters of color. 40% more material than average pastel sticks, yielding at least 4 to 5 times more coverage than sticks. But they do have a survey on their website of the leading brands, and all this info is available, including pigment info and light fast info and things like that, so if you wanted to look that up. But I definitely have some remarks on that 40% more material claim. And we're going to get into that in just a second also. And in terms of 4 to 5 times more coverage than sticks, I'm really not sure I'm behind them on that. Now, I will say that I really do like these PanPastels, and I do find them to be very, very vibrant and vivid, punchy colors. I do think they're very, very soft. They're very buttery, silky, smooth. They apply really well to the paper, and they do seem to go very far. However, when I think coverage, I think of something that's going to be more opaque, right? So if you have, let's say you lay down a strip of color and you go over it full coverage would mean that it would cover it up completely. And that's not possible with PanPastel. You can influence the color underneath, but you cannot fully override that color. So I don't really like the fact that they're saying 4 to 5 times more coverage than sticks, because I think that's flat out not true, in my opinion. With stick pastels, you can take a bright yellow and cover up black in some instances. Now, it will get muddied, don't get me wrong, but the coverage is absolutely, you're going to get more opaque passages of full, bold, punchy color with sticks versus these. But the benefit of them being more transparent is that you are able to get those lovely transparent veils of color or glaze techniques with PanPastel, which was not completely possible before. So I do feel like they offer something new and introduce something different, bring something new to the table that other pastels don't. So what I have here is I've got a little list of price comparisons that I want to talk about. This is kind of more, on the top here, this is more about the 40% claim. So I want to talk about this. So PanPastels right now, the list price is anywhere between $7.49 and $8.49 a pan. The list price is what you can expect to pay if you go into a big box store, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, your local art store, etc. And then I've got the Blick price over here, which you get a little bit of a discount. Now there's a little discrepancy, about $1 here. That depends on the color that you get. The pearl, metallics, and the mediums are about $1 more, so something to keep in mind. So again, they're $7.49 to $8.49 a pan. The Blick price is $5.41 to $6.41 a pan. So you do get a little bit of a discount there. Now a Rembrandt stick, which is a very reputable, kind of reliable brand of pastel, very popular, a lot of people have it, they're $5.35 list price. And the Blick price is going to be $3.43. Sennelier, $6.90. Schminke, which is some of the softest, most luxurious pastels in the world and some of the most expensive, $7.60 a stick list price, or $4.91 at Blick. So you can see that when we're talking about price here, the price is right on par with Schminke, right? So we can compare the price to some of the most expensive and luxurious pastels in the world. And I haven't checked the price of Terry Ludwig or Unisons lately, but it's probably right in the ballpark in terms of the list price. Okay, so, you know, they say they're giving you 40% more than the average or the leading stick. But the average stick for most people, I think, would be Rembrandt or Sennelier, and you can expect to pay about 40% more than a Rembrandt or Sennelier. So I don't want you to think that nobody gives you something for nothing. I'm not trying to be negative, but I don't think that, you know, you're just getting that 40% more for free. I think you're paying for it, I have to say. Also, one more thing I wanted to mention is, if PanPastels or anything like makeup, when you get makeup like a compact powder, blush, whatever, when it starts to get worn down around the edges and you just get that thin amount kind of left, it tends to crack and crumble and fall out. And I suspect this would follow suit with these as well. I couldn't imagine why it wouldn't. So you might not get to use all of it, is kind of what I'm saying. You might lose some. It might crack, fall out, whatever, once it starts to get very thin. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I noticed on some of my most used ones that I've had a little bit longer, and I'll do a close-up of this so you can really see what I'm talking about. It's starting to develop a kind of a bumpy texture. Now, normally when I see that in makeup, which is, you know, a pressed powder pigment kind of product, normally when I see that in makeup, it's because the product's starting to get old and it's bacterial growth. Not sure that in terms of hygiene standards this matters, but when that happens in makeup, the product, the blush, whatever it is, forms a hard skin on the top of the product that you can't really get the color to pick up and release as well. Sometimes, you know, you'd have to like scrape it to get some of the product to come off. And it makes me wonder, and I can't say because it's too soon to know, I don't know, but it makes me wonder if will, you know, how that will affect the longevity of this product in the future. Will I be scraping at it? Will it get hard as a rock and I'll have to be scraping at it to get that product off later on? Haven't experienced that yet, but I will update you guys in the future because I have a brand new white, and I'd like to compare it to my older white, which has the bumpy texture, and just see in a couple months' time, does the new one release the same as the more used one with that bumpy texture, because it's something to keep in mind. So yeah, I did want to mention that. Not trying to be an alarmist, but I did want to mention that. So in terms of the PanPastel pricing, like I said, open stock, $7.49 to $8.49 a pan list. For the full set of 80, the list price is $549.99. I don't know why they don't just say $550. You know what I mean? The Blick price is $312.99 for the full set of 80 right now as it stands. And of course, these prices are prone to fluctuate. The painting color set of 20, the list price is $119.99 and the Blick price is $71.99. And that's what I would expect to pay. I would never pay the list price on that. And that set of 20 colors, that goes for the shades, the tints, and the extra darks as well. They also have sets that are tailored more towards specific genres like landscape, seascape, portraits, drawing, mixed media, and a lot more. The palette trays, which you can buy individually, if you buy them this way, the set of 20 at a time, you're going to have to stack them if you don't buy the palette trays. When you get the full set, though, you do get the palette trays, so that's also something else to consider. The set of 10, which is what I have here, let me take the top off because otherwise there'll be a terrible glare. There might be anyway, I'm sorry. The set of 10 is $11.99 list, $9.01 Blick price, so a little bit of a discount, but not too much. The set of 20 is $15.50 or $11.62. So if you do want those palette trays and you want to collect them over time, that is something also to factor into the cost. If you want these also, that every time you order a set of 20, you may have to add another $11.62 on if you want these trays. So that's something to figure. Now the tools, I've got a wide variety of tools and I'd like to talk about which ones I think are most useful. But in terms of the pricing on that, the knives, which is a set of 4 knives here, or you can get 4 of all the same, a variety. They have a variety of tools, so I don't have all the prices for that, but just the most popular ones here. A set of 4 knives with 8 covers is going to run you about $10 to $12. The covers only package of 10, that's what these here are. $3.99 list price, $3.51 Blick price, so not much of a discount, unfortunately. The Art Bar sponges, a package of 3 is $3.99 or $3.42. So for the Blick price, so again, little discount, not too much helping you out. And then the mini applicators, which are these tiny little like eyeshadow-like things. A package of 12 is $7.49 list price. That's crazy. I'm sorry. Or $6.21 Blick price. Now I do like these and I use them a ton, but goodness gracious. They are good material, by the way, these art sponges. And I have to say that in general, I recommend the Art Bar sponges more than the palette knives with the little sock kind of covers because they develop holes in them pretty easily, especially if you're using sanded paper. And I know there are some people that say, oh, well, you're just not being gentle enough, you're being too rough. But I have a very light, gentle hand. I know you probably wouldn't be able to know by my big hands, but I am very gentle with them, and they are very delicate, and you can even rip them just putting them on. I've had that happen a bunch of times. So in terms of what you want to buy longevity-wise, what you're going to get the most use out of and the most bang for your buck, I recommend these. They clean up really well. I use the Masters brush cleaner on them when I have to clean them. And I've had no issues with that so far. So I would definitely recommend those tools over these palette knives with the covers. So next, oh, also I wanted to mention, I've got this really kind of random Lorac eyeshadow brush here, the angle side. I was able to use that for small details, so you may even want to try makeup brushes. They are not going to hold as much product as the specific tools are, because they're hydrophobic, I think they call it. They don't absorb a lot of the product, so again, it's personal preference. The fluffy end really doesn't work that well, but the angled brushes, I found this invaluable in my demonstration. It really did help me get some fine details and into some small spots. So I did want to mention that as well. So the next thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to talk about how I think it would be best for you to collect these, how I think you should buy them if you were interested in buying these. So how I started is I purchased the painting colors. The painting colors set of 20. These are all of the pure colors plus black and white. So with that pure painting color set, you can mix everything in the range by either adding varying amounts of black or varying amounts of white. So I started with that set. And I think that that's a great place to start. It's a good workhorse set, and for many people, I think that might be all you want. You may even just stop there. I know you can absolutely make it work 100%, but the issue I kept running into was I like to use a lot of lighter, softer colors in my work occasionally, and the white was getting dirty really, really quick. So you may just want to purchase the painting color set and an extra white or two. And an extra black maybe, and you'll be completely happy with that. And I made that work for quite some time and I was happy with it. But I did find that it became quite tedious to keep mixing the tint colors, so I purchased the tints. So I would collect in that order. The paint, if you're sure you want them all, collect in that order. The painting colors, then the tints, then the extra darks, because you're going to be mixing a lot into your black a lot. And I definitely use a lot of rich chromatic darks in my work. If you're familiar with my work at all, you'll know that. So definitely I think that's the most useful order in my opinion. And then the shades, like I said in my haul video of these, I think if you were going to disregard any one of them, I would skip that. Just because it's easy to mix between the pure colors and the extra darks to get that subtle nuance in between, but it is quite subtle. As I showed in my haul video, many of them were really close. So it's, in my opinion, not the most must-have of the four. So that's how I would collect if you were sure you wanted them all. I knew I wanted them all. You will end up with just a little bit of duplicates. Not any of the pure colors, but you will get black twice and you'll get white twice, which is fine because you use them up and you're going to be mixing a lot. But there were two colors that, because you get duplicate blacks and white, that you don't get from the range, and that was just two of the grays. It was the Payne's gray tint and a neutral gray tint that was extra, that I had to order extra. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but because I knew I wanted those palette trays, I ordered, like the painting colors, and I ordered a palette tray every time. The tints, and then a palette tray every time. So that definitely adds to the cost. So you might want to consider just ordering the full set right off the bat, because if you know you want them all, if you can afford that investment all up front, because it will save you money in the long run a lot of the time, because you get all of the palette trays and you get a sampling of all the tools also. When you purchase them this way, you will get a variety of tools, but duplicate tools over and over again. So instead of offering a variety, different tools in every box, nope, that's not what they do. They give you the same round, the same flat palette knife every time, that same sponge art bar every time, the large oval, which I didn't find very useful, the same kind of like pointed bar, and the one that looks like a finger. Every single time. So you know, that was a little disappointing. I wish they had kind of planned ahead and gave a bigger variety of things, but that's fine. I did end up using that art sponge for acrylic paint. And that worked really well because it is that material that doesn't absorb a lot of water or paint. I didn't lose hardly any. I was able to wash it up and reuse it too, so that was great. If you are an artist that's specifically into portraiture or landscape, or even wildlife, Jason Morgan, who's an amazing wildlife artist here on YouTube. I have so much respect for him, and he just seems like such a lovely person also. He has a wildlife set with them, and I almost bought it. Like, just because, you know, his art was on it, and I was like, oh, I want that, but no, I knew that I wanted all of them. But his set is pretty reasonably priced. You get the palette tray, and you get 10 colors. For the Blick price is $49.99. So, and you get a variety of tools in there also that he hand selected. So if you're a wildlife artist and you would like a good limited set, grab his set because it really is a good value, I think, money wise. I mean, you can't beat it. And I really respect his recommendations also. I think they're very useful for wildlife colors. And like I said, they have sets tailored to a bunch of different genres, so you're really gonna find what you need, I think. And they also offer a bunch of different mediums. Now, I did not buy any of the pearls, the metallics, the sparkle type mediums, because as a fine artist, I don't have use for those. But for crafting and things like that, I think that would be very useful. However, I did purchase the Colorless Blender, and I'd like to offer a little bit of a demonstration on how I use that. This medium is basically an extender medium, you know, for the PanPastels, and I found it very useful. Alright, so I thought I'd like to show you how I use their Colorless Blender, or at least one of the more popular ways that I like to use this. So I've got a little palette knife here with the sock cover on it, and I did rip it a little bit putting it on there, so just letting you know it is pretty fragile. And I've got the phthalo blue, and I'm just going to put some on directly onto the paper and show you what that looks like first. So this is not the most expensive paper, by the way. It's not the pastel matte paper I recommend, but it definitely will work for this purpose. And this is the piece of paper that I did the demonstration on opacity here, so you could get an idea. You could see that it does build up nice, and, you know, but it's going to be more of kind of like a watercolor effect. I've probably already said that, but it's nice. But say I wanted a transparent kind of veil of that. If I wanted that color to be more, go farther and be more transparent. Now, you might think if you wanted kind of a lighter version of that, you'd add white, but if you do that, it's going to make it a little more opaque, and it's definitely going to make it more kind of pastel and chalky. You can kind of get away with that, but if you want something that's going to truly be like a glaze, here's how I like to do that. And I did that on the flower, which I'll be demonstrating very soon. What I did was I put down an original layer, some details, sprayed a layer of fixative, let that set, and then when I wanted to do a glaze, I just picked up a very small amount on my palette knife, and I just kind of mixed it with the Colorless Blender. And do you see how it kind of almost waters it down or lightens the color right there on the knife? I can grab a little bit more, kind of a little bit more there, and you can see you can add varying amounts, but now the color is lighter and it's gonna go so much farther, but it's still very transparent. It's not the same thing as if you added white. So I was able to get really, really beautiful, lovely glaze kind of effects. You can see it's still going. And look how smooth that is. I mean, it's just so smooth and beautiful, even coverage. That's what I would definitely like to say the most about PanPastels, is that I think they offer very even, smooth coverage. across the surface of the paper. And you can see that it definitely lightened that phthalo blue. But if I were to come in with the phthalo blue tint, which is that color plus white, I'm going to pick some of that up and show you the difference. Oh, of course I picked the wrong paper. Well, I'll blend it into this so that you can hopefully see how that's very much more opaque and kind of powdery. So that's not the same thing at all. I want to make sure that you understand there's a real difference. That covered it up more. The more white you add, the more opaque the color will definitely be. And you can see that, look at that, how it influences that color. I mean, the lighter tints are definitely more opaque because of that white. But by adding the Colorless Blender, you can definitely get a very true glaze-like effect, which was never possible in the world of pastel before, certainly not with stick pastels. And I think that that's the most unique thing about PanPastel that they have to offer. Okay, so at this point in the video, I'd like to go ahead and get into the demonstration. And while we're watching that, I thought that I would give the rundown of the list of pros and cons. And I'd like to start with the cons. So my first con is that I don't necessarily think that these pastels are beginner friendly. The reason being is that they are a little bit more involved than a traditional box of stick pastels. You lose a little bit of that immediacy that you have with a traditional pastel. So with a normal box of pastels, you open that box and you go. With these, you're going to have to be setting up palette trays. You have tools to think about and how you're going to clean them. And you do have to adjust your technique quite a little bit. I also think that advanced or seasoned pastel artists may find these a little bit difficult, frustrating, or maybe even disappointing to use because you're probably used to working with that very punchy, opaque, vibrant stick of pastel where you're going to get that bold, opaque passage, and you're not going to be able to get that with these because they're a little bit more of like a watercolor type effect because they're transparent. Next, I wanted to mention that you cannot get fine detail work with these. They're just not capable of it. It's not a medium that lends itself to that effect. Even though they do offer tools in a variety of sizes, none of them are going to get you fine lines. I'm thinking hair-like details, feathers, wildlife, portraiture, etc. You can do your base layers and your underpaintings with them and glazing with them, and that's great and wonderful. But they really can't be your only pastels. So you're going to have to come in on top with something like pastel pencils, color pencils, pastel sticks, whatever you choose. I also wanted to mention that the purple is a lower chroma version of the Dioxazine Violet. They chose this pigment probably because it's the more light, fast choice, but I did notice as I was going through with this piece that I was a little disappointed that the purple was not as punchy as it really could have been. I thought it did look a little bit dull. However, on the flip side of that, because it's more natural looking, it'd be easier to incorporate that into a landscape and have that look like it belongs and have it look more natural. So that's really personal preference. You do have to constantly be cleaning off tools, something that you wouldn't have to think about with a traditional pastel. And the added costs of the tools and the palette trays and things like that. With a normal pastel, you got your pastels and you're good to go. But with these, you have to think about now constantly replenishing tools, which is an added cost that you wouldn't have ordinarily. Next up on my list of cons is that you do have to clean the PanPastels themselves off after every painting because there will be contamination from color mixing and from the tools. And because you have to clean them off, you're also going to be losing a little bit more of the additional product. So it's not a lot, but I do think it's worth mentioning that when you clean them, you're going to be losing a little bit of product. And my last con really is a matter of personal preference. Depends on whether or not you're a studio artist only or if you like to take your pastels out with you. I really truly believe that the PanPastels are a studio medium only. If you're a plein air painter, likely this isn't going to be your pastel of choice, because I wouldn't want to take these out with me. It would be far too cumbersome. And then also the additional burden of having to worry about how you're going to clean off the tools and the pastels, because you're losing the immediacy, and you're also losing the kind of travel-friendly appeal that a traditional box of pastels have. So now for the pros list to these pastels. So for the pros, you can cover large areas very quickly and extremely evenly. So if you wanted to come on top of these with pastel pencils, pastel sticks, or even colored pencils to do your details on top, you're going to save so much time versus if you were going to be doing that. Let's say you were going to do a full color pencil piece. I would never do a background in full color pencil anymore because it just takes too long and it's too hard on my hands. But if I wanted to come in with these first for my underpainting, I could get that done so fast, so easy, and very smooth. So that's a huge advantage. You can glaze now in pastel. I can't even emphasize that enough, just how exciting that really is and what a huge advantage that really is, because that was never possible before in the world of pastel. Because they are more transparent, kind of like a watercolor effect, you're going to get those transparent veils of color, and I just think it's so luminous, so beautiful, and it adds such a layer of depth and richness to my work that I wouldn't be able to achieve ordinarily without the PanPastel. So that's huge. They are very light fast. They chose all excellent pigments, including that violet. Even though it's a slightly lower chroma, it is more light fast, and I myself would make that choice. So I'm glad that they did that. They're all extremely pigmented, very, very pigmented. A little goes a long way. And if a little tip also, if you're kicking up a lot of dust or a lot of powder when you dip into these with your sponge or soft tool, you're definitely working too hard. Just a little tap or a little swipe, and that's all you need. They release color very easily, and a lot of color. A little goes a long way. I was constantly impressed by just how vibrant a lot of the colors were, especially that phthalo green that you'll see in the upper right corner, I believe, for you. Yes, it's the upper right corner. That's actually a phthalo green tint that I chose there. And I mean, it just seems to glow off the paper. It's absolutely beautiful. And even the video definitely does it no justice. You can mix colors now, which you could always mix to a degree in pastel. They say that you could mix these like a fluid paint, and I disagree with that claim. I said we'd come back to it, and now we're back to it. You definitely can mix to the extent that if you have the pure colors, you mix white, you'll get a tint. You mix black, you'll get an extra dark, but definitely not as effectively as a fluid paint. For example, if you're working in acrylics, oils, watercolor, and you wanted to mix your own sap green, you wanted to take phthalo green and a yellow and a little bit of burnt sienna, maybe a little red. When you start getting into more technical or evolved mixes where you're mixing not just two pigments together, but 3, 4, maybe even 5, as I often do, to mix your own chromatic mud, let's say, it's not going to be as ideal with PanPastels. It's not really even possible, to be honest. But you can mix more effectively than traditional pastels, and I'll give them that. So it's still a pro, but not as much as a fluid paint. So who do I think these pastels are good for? Like I said, I think they're good for a lot of people. If you already have a set of pastels and you'd like to expand on that and make what you have already more versatile, then these might be for you. If you're a beginner and you don't have any pastels at all, I would not recommend these for your first pastel. I don't think you'll be happy with them. They're just not able to do enough to be your only pastels, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of crafters and hobbyists like these as well, because they're very useful for a lot of card techniques, card making techniques. In caustics, I see people using these for. So they're really very good for a lot of different people. And yet, just to be honest, I don't think they could be your only pastel. So, you know, keeping that in mind. But they are very lovely. They are very beautiful. You have to decide for yourself if you think that they would be right for you, keeping in mind the pros and cons. And also, are you a studio artist, or are you somebody who likes to take your pastels out with you plein air? Because if you are, again, they just might not be the best option for you. So that's my review today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them in the comment section down below, and I always do my best to answer every comment. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful, and subscribe for more videos coming in the future, because I have a full review coming on the Mount Vision pastels next that I recently tried, and I'm so excited to share them with you guys. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss that. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. On a little side note, I did want to mention, I hope that everybody is doing very well, has everything that they need, and are being safe in the middle of this global health crisis with coronavirus that we're all doing our best to just get through. So I wish everybody the best of luck on that as well, and I hope that all my subscribers and everyone around the world, for that matter, is doing well tonight. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.